going on, everyone? And in this video, I'll be giving you my UFC 272 main card predictions for the upcoming event taking place this Saturday, March 5th, 2022 at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. This is going to be a pretty solid main card. Luckily, they were able to keep that co-main event with Dos Anjos, obviously having Renato Moicano stepping in, Edson Barbosa taking on Bryce Mitchell, Kevin Holland taking on Alex Oliveira, Sergey Spivak taking on Greg Hardy. So I think it's a pretty solid main card. Still, obviously, the main event, no title fights, but I think that main event's pretty solid. So we'll have to see how all this plays out. Quickly talking about the last event, Islam Makhachev really doing what he needed to do in that first round to get that TKO. Pretty dominant performance in that one. Really not much to say. Obviously, credit to Bobby Green for just coming in there on short notice, doing what he could. But, I mean, I think it might have gone a little bit longer, maybe to a decision, honestly, if Green would have been able to get a full camp. But, still, I mean, it's just a tough outing for anyone at this point right now. Wellington Turman defeating Misha Serkinov by submission. Pretty good submission victory for him. Didn't really see that coming. I guess not that I didn't see it coming, but more of just I thought Serkinov was going to be able to do a little bit more there. But regardless, Turman getting a victory in that one. And then, I think Arman Sarukian defeating Joel Alvarez by TKO. Again, a dominant performance. We've seen him take on Makhachev before, so maybe he'll get up there again, being able to take on Makhachev eventually, because right now he's looking really good and just a dominant performance. So didn't call those two right, but still, obviously, pretty solid card. So we'll go ahead and jump into the main card of the next event, and we'll go ahead and talk about it. So in the first fight on the main card, we have Sergey Polar Bear Spivak taking on Greg Prince of War Greg Hardy. Greg Prince of War Hardy. 13-3 for Spivak, 7-4, 1-0 contest for Greg Hardy. And this is a fight where I can see why they put it on the main card. I think obviously they're anticipating some sort of finish here, whether or not it's from Greg Hardy or whether or not it's from Spivak, maybe getting a submission or something like that. We'll have to see. But I definitely can see why they put this on the main card in the first fight, because they're anticipating some sort of finish. So with that being said, we'll jump right into it. So obviously for Spivak, I think he's going to have the wrestling advantage if he decides to go for that. Early on, though, it's going to be hard to do a lot with Greg Hardy. He's one of those guys where early on, he's very dangerous. But, the one thing that concerns me about, because I think right off the bat, I would say, I'm going to take Greg Hardy, right? Because Spivak is not necessarily, he's not anything that stands out, right? It's not like you're like, oh, man, he's fighting Sergey Spivak. He's going to get, murked or something like that. But you look at Greg Hardy and you look at his fight IQ, and it's like really bad fight IQ sometimes, right? We saw that against Tuivasa. This dude starts swinging wildly. He actually wobbles Tuivasa a little bit, and then he goes in there like an insane person, gets caught, gets put down, and it just was like horrible, like just fight IQ. Like why didn't you just relax, calm down? We saw that against Tybura as well. He's actually kind of beating him up, and the next thing you know, he just kind of makes the wrong choices, and then he's getting finished, and then his night's over. And it's not like he was able to do anything on the ground as well, right? The moment like Spivak, if he's able to do this, especially if Greg Hardy's a little bit gassed or whatnot, if Spivak's able to get him on the floor, I'm just afraid that Hardy's gonna do nothing. Right, and then if he does nothing, then you have Spivak coming out of here with a submission victory of some sort, or just TKOing him because Hardy's just kind of just on the floor, just laying there, and that's just not going to look good. That being said, though, if Greg Hardy is aware of this, right, he can be a little bit more, this will be 3 losses in a row if he loses this fight, and I don't think you want to be losing to a guy like Sergey Spivak. Not that Spivak's like, again, like the worst fighter in the world or anything like that. But it's just, like, that's not really going to get you anywhere, right? You go from facing guys like Volkov, Tybura, Tuivasa, Sergey Spivak. You lose to Sergey Spivak, and it's kind of like you might get booted or you might be fighting some random dude on the prelims. I think Greg Hardy has to win this one, right? He has to know that, like, his fight IQ has to be a little bit better. He has to work on his ground game. He has to learn how to just keep a little bit more composure in there and not just want to brawl and just get heavily exposed just in these wild exchanges that don't really make too much sense. When he could probably have knocked out Tuivasa if he would have just calmed down for 5 seconds. If he would have waited, against Tybura and just fought a little bit smarter, I think he probably could have finished him as well. It's just that he makes these big mistakes. So Spivak obviously has a chance to win this fight. I think it's going to happen later, though. Obviously when Greg Hardy kind of is able to unload, and if Spivak doesn't get put to sleep or anything like that, I think he might be able to just, and it might not be the most technical thing we see, right? Spivak, it might be kind of sloppy. He might be gassed as well. He might be severely hurt, but he'll be able to get like this weird takedown and then just, pretty much just TKO him or submit him, because I can just see Greg Hardy just being done at that point if it goes that far. But early on, I think Greg Hardy has to know that, like, hey man, this is it, right? You have to go in there, you have to get that big KO, but you have to do it smart, and you got to just calm down. And you're very capable of knocking this dude out, right? But you can't be gassing out so early and just making these really bad fight decisions that you shouldn't be making at this level, at least. So I'm gonna go Greg Hardy on this one because his back is against the wall, and this is probably his last chance. If he loses this fight, it's probably not gonna be good for him. So I'm gonna go Greg Hardy to defeat Sergey Spivak. I'm gonna take him to win by round 1 KO TKO. Move on into the second fight on the main card, and we have Kevin Trailblazer Holland taking on Alex Cowboy Oliveira. 21-7, 1 no contest for Kevin Holland, and then he'll be taking on Oliveira, who's 22-11-1, 2 no contest. Kevin Holland's last fight, he's coming off of that no contest against Kyle Dawkins in round number 1 via headbutt, in a fight where, see, this is the sketchy thing for him, right? I think striking wise, as far as just having the more volume at least, and just having more precise, better precision when it comes to his striking, I think he's gonna have that over Alex Oliveira. I'm not saying Oliveira's striking is bad, but it's definitely not something where I see him, constantly mixing up strikes and all that, and being a little like speed. He definitely has power. Obviously, he has good power, but he's not. His volume is a little bit less than Kevin Holland's volume, at least. The one thing that does concern me here, though, is going to have to be Alex Oliveira, obviously going in for those takedowns. And if he's able to get him on the floor, body lock takedown, take his back, stuff like that, I mean, it's just not going to be good for Holland. Unless, obviously, Holland has worked on his, he has to have worked on his takedown defense. But you only work on your takedown defense for so long, right? So, this is really sketch, and this is not this is another fight though where I see, like, again, if Kevin Holland loses this fight, he's coming off the loss to Derek Brunson, he's coming off the loss to Marvin Vettori, he has a no contest against Chris Dawkins. If he gets KO'd here or something submitted, it slowly went downhill ever since the Souza fight, and that's just going to be unfortunate for him. Oliveira is definitely dangerous in this fight. Like I said, he could close that distance, get a body lock takedown, snake him. But I do think over the course of 3 rounds, Holland's probably going to have the fresher striking and just have the better volume as well, and not just be picking like 1 or 2 big shots. And the other thing he's got to be careful too, just like Greg Hardy, Holland's got to slow it down a little bit, not be slipping on the mat, stuff like that. He's got to just, be calm. Don't just look for the knockout. Try to fight smart. Be aware of the takedown, but don't let it dictate, where the fight's going to be, right? But I would say fight long, fight technical, and just try to overwhelm Oliveira with the striking at a distance, right? Play it smart, and I just you really gotta hope that he's worked on his takedown defense. Oliveira is gonna be tough to finish though. Definitely something where, but at the same time, I feel like Kevin Holland needs a finish, right? Because if he wants to get up there again, he can't just be going to some weird decision where he defended takedowns and really wasn't that exciting. So, I know Oliveira, I don't think he's been finished in a while or whatever, especially, I think he hasn't been finished via TKO, via KO or anything like that. And yeah, so he's pretty much just lost via submission or a decision. So yeah, I'm not saying that he's going to go out there and obliterate him, but he has to. So we'll have to see what happens with that. Kevin Holland definitely needs to go out here and have a dominant performance. He has to get back to his ways of being flashy but at the same time being smart. And if he's able to do that, obviously then he can move up in this division. But Oliveira is definitely a good opponent for him, and we'll have to see how this works. because we kind of went from him, like, especially after he KO'd Souza the way he did on the floor with the back fists. We kind of went from that to him kind of just, oh, he's not that good, right? And because of his takedown defense. But I think here he needs to show. And Oliveira is definitely one of these guys where he'll get into a wild exchange and he'll start to slow down too. I think because he puts a lot of effort into each strike, right? Because he's not necessarily trying to kill anyone with volume. He's definitely trying to land big shots here and there. So that definitely tires him out. And then the grappling as well. But man, Oliveira's dangerous on the floor. So it's sketchy, man. If it goes there early on, it's just going to be really sketchy. But I think if Holland can improve in that takedown defense, I think if he can keep this fight standing, I think if he can overwhelm Oliveira, make the better shot selection, and be smart about it, I think he can keep the fight standing. And I think we're going to see him get a finish finally. If not, he's going to get absolutely destroyed. But I'm going to go Kevin Holland on this one just because, again, another fighter back against the wall. We're going to have to see what happens, though. So I'm going to go Kevin Holland to defeat Alex Oliveira in a long time by KO TKO in round number 2. And move on into the third fight on the main card. And we have Edson Jr. Barbosa taking on Bryce Thug Nasty Mitchell. For this fight, it's really, in my opinion, a high-level striker versus a high-level grappler. When you look at Mitchell's fights, that's pretty the dominant thing, right? There's the control on the ground, the constant aggression to get those takedowns. Striking isn't necessarily, and granted, he hasn't fought, I think, since 2022 or something like that. I mean 2020. So he hasn't fought because of injuries or whatnot for 2 years, almost 2 years, whatever. That could play an issue into this, but at the same time, it's not really something I would really look at, just because obviously he's been training probably behind the scenes, and you don't really know what he's doing. He can actually have made significant improvements in his striking, even better improvements in his wrestling. That's already top tier level. Now that being said, he's fighting in a guy, Edson Barbosa, who's literally been fighting top level competition his entire career, veteran in the game. We all know who Edson Barbosa is. We all know he's very dangerous as well. Nasty leg kicks. The striking is just going to be the biggest thing for Edson Barbosa in this one. That being said, we've seen him also be destroyed by grapplers such as, Khabib Nurmagomedov. And that's a little bit concerning, because if Mitchell's able to kind of just take him down constantly, that's not going to be a good look. Now, I feel like he's really been able to... I feel like he's not done well against better strikers. So when you look at, his loss, TKO loss to Giga Chikadze, Dan Ige, not that Ige is the best striker ever, but Paul Felder, Justin Gaethje, Kevin Lee, again, not that Kevin Lee's, a dominant striker or anything. Khabib Nurmagomedov, but again, that was just dominant wrestling more than anything. So, he defeated Dan Hooker, KO, punch to the body. Shane Burgos, obviously that delayed KO. But when he fights top level competition, he's obviously struggled against good strikers, and obviously Khabib is the anomaly, right? Because he's just dominant. He's just dominant grappler. So that's a little concerning, because if Mitchell's just able to keep taking him down and Barbosa's gassing out, right, he's not going to be able to do anything to hurt him. That being said, though, this is at featherweight. And I think it'd be very disrespectful, in my opinion, to count out someone like Edson Barbosa, just because I think the striking difference is just on another level for Barbosa. You've got that switch kick stuff, going to the body, nasty jabs, always ready to kick the shit out of someone. And that's something where you can see Barbosa slamming those leg kicks, and Mitchell's like, oh, hell no, diving in for the takedowns, right? But Barbosa's got to know that, and I think there's going to be opportunities to expose Bryce Mitchell on the feet, at least through his striking, man. His striking is going to be a lot better, I just think. And I think it's just disrespectful to think otherwise. I'm not saying that Bryce Mitchell hasn't made... Maybe he goes out there, right, and just kills him. Bryce Mitchell takes him down, or he drops him and then takes him down. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell, right, because we don't have that. We don't have a recent fight. We don't have a recent update of how he's been doing. So he could either come out here and look really bad, or he come out here and look like the greatest of all time, and then we're talking about him fighting for the title pretty much. So he is undefeated. Well, he's not undefeated, but I feel like he's basically undefeated, just because he has had that one loss, but it was in the Ultimate Fighter. But if you look at his record, it says 14-0, right? Not including that Ultimate Fighter fight that no one's really gonna count anyways. But yeah, I think Barbosa, the striking, I'll believe it when I see it, right? If Mitchell goes out there and kills him, he goes out there and finishes him or whatever, or just dominantly grapples him, possibly whatever. I'll believe it. But that being said, man, Barbosa, just nasty with the striking. He's also very aggressive. We even saw it against Shikazi. He was pressing him back. He was still going forward, man. You really have to take this guy out. He's definitely a dangerous striker, not a guy you want in your face, lighting you up with all these different strikes. But that one thing I would say, yeah, it would have to be getting grinded out, getting taken down, and because I just don't see Bryce Mitchell having that better striking, the speed advantage on the feet. I watched some of Bryce Mitchell's fights, and his striking, granted it was 2 years ago or less than 2 years ago, but still, we're talking about fighting Edson Barbosa. You really, you either gotta be, you gotta be timing those takedowns perfectly and holding this dude down and just really going after it constantly, and not slowing down at all to really just dominate Barbosa. Or you gotta be nasty on the feet like Chikadze and be going after him and setting him up for traps and trying to go just break him down. It's a tough outing. And it'll be a great fight to win for Bryce Mitchell if he's able to win it. But I'm just gonna have to go Edson Barbosa for this one. I'm gonna take him to win by a decision because I think he's just gonna piece him up, defend those takedowns, but mainly piece him up, or he gets grinded out. But Edson Barbosa by decision. And then we move into the co-main event of the evening, another short notice fight. It's like we're just getting at least one short notice fight per week at this point in the UFC. Rafael dos Anjos coming in this fight 30-13, taking on Renato Moicano 16-4-1. Now for this fight, Moicano's the one coming in on short notice. Dangerous fighter, great strikes landed per minute, 5.12, as opposed to Rafael dos Anjos's 3.49. That being said, though, I just think overall, is this a 5-round fight? I think this is a 5-round fight or something like that as well. Which on short notice, weight cut, like I know it's at 160 or whatnot, but Dos Anjos, man, he's an all-around solid fighter. Moicano is dangerous with the submissions. He's also very dangerous with his strikes because although be it doesn't seem like he has the most power in the world, Dos Anjos can drop in some hooks, pretty big hooks as well, in close. Moicano doesn't really come off like he has that kind of power, but he definitely does. We saw in his last fight against Alex Hernandez in a fight where he was able to get the finish there. Like any fight that's on short notice, though, like, I mean, is it really gonna be fair, at the same time, just because you have one guy who's been training in camp or whatever, honed in on fighting a top level opponent, and then next thing you know, he's not fighting a top level opponent. He was gonna fight Rafael Fiziev, and then Fiziev, he's one of those guys where, I mean, he's gonna walk you down, he's gonna get in your face, and he's going to try to break you. So he was preparing to fight a pretty tough guy, right? So not to say Renato Moicano isn't a tough guy, but it's like it's not like he was training to fight some guy on the prelims. So he's definitely going to be in there. I think we saw him in his last fights. He hasn't slowed down, right? He's gone 5 rounds before. Been in title fights, fought top level competition. He's fought Colby Covington, he's fought Kamaru Usman. Last fight, split decision over Paul Felder, in a fight where I understand why it was split decision, but I still think that he won that fight. Struggled a little bit at welterweight, came back down, fought Paul Felder at lightweight. So this will be at 160, and it might even benefit Dos Anjos as well, right? Just because, I don't have to cut down to 150, whatever. So yeah, I just think over the course of 5 rounds, and I think it's a 5-round fight. Pretty sure it's a 5-round fight. Or maybe it's not, but if it is a 5-round fight, because it was a main event, I expect him to go in here and pretty much just beat up Moicano over the course of those 5 rounds. And I wouldn't want to say dominant. Maybe he's able to get a late finish here just because Moicano might be taking too much damage, because Dos Anjos in close, like I can just see him landing pretty good hooks, possibly going to the takedowns. He's gonna have to be careful early on because obviously Moicano might try to pull something slick, might try to go for that submission, might try to land one of those knees if Dos Anjos is coming in a little bit reckless. But at the same time, I think Dos Anjos is gonna fight smart. He's got to know that he's gonna go in here against a dangerous guy on short notice. But that being said, I think if he's able to kind of just slowly start picking away at Moicano, he's obviously going to have to, I would say, go for the finish because, we see someone like, now granted though, we saw someone like Islam Makhachev last week take on Bobby Green, and that was a pretty dominant performance. And I would like to see Dos Anjos go in again and go for a dominant performance. So I'm going to take Dos Anjos on this one. I believe it's a 5-round fight, so I'm going to take him actually to win this fight. I would say in the latter rounds, probably 4th or 5th round. So I'll go Dos Anjos to defeat Renato Moicano. I just think he's going to beat him up, grind him out, get in close, land the better shots, go for the leg kicks, just be the grinder in this one. Watch out for those early submissions. Watch out for any random knees coming up to the dome when he's going in for the takedowns, especially early on. And then I'll expect him to get a KO TKO for Rafael Dos Anjos in round number 4. And then we move into the main event of the evening, and we have Colby Chaos Covington taking on Jorge Gamebred Masvidal. 16-3 for Colby Covington, 35-15 for Jorge Masvidal. Now in this, they're talking about all this drama, all this stuff. It's like WWE at this point, but we have Colby Covington coming in here. Only losses really in the recent history of his fights against Kamaru Usman, right? Everyone else has been able to take over. Got submitted by Warley Alves early on, but I think a lot of people were getting submitted by Warley Alves back in that day. That's one of his main things that he does. He's going in there trying to get the submissions. That's just what he does. So I wouldn't say that's too much of a knock on him, especially what we've been able to see from him in his previous fights. Taking on someone again like Rafael Dos Anjos, Robbie Lawler, Tyron Woodley. Granted, he fought Tyron Woodley when Woodley was not, I don't think he's mentally in the fight game anymore. But regardless, dominant wrestler. Striking has definitely improved per fight. Not the best, but I wouldn't count him out. Right, that's one thing I would say about that is that I think a lot of people are saying, you're gonna see Jorge Masvidal box him up, take him out, knock him out, and I'm not saying he can't. I think if Covington engages in something like that, the majority of the fight, where he's trying to prove something to himself that he can box with Jorge Masvidal, then just give Jorge Masvidal the fight. If he's not mixing in takedowns, if he's not making Jorge Masvidal feel that pressure to where he's literally just trying to box with him, that's just stupid, right? You can't be doing stuff like that. So I expect Covington to not be doing that, but when he does do it, don't be surprised if he's able to land some good shots himself, because he's going to be doing MMA. He's not just boxing with Jorge Masvidal. He's going to be trying to mix in that takedown, just mix in annoying grappling, right? Get in close. And I would say he took some pretty big shots from Usman and was able to not get finished. He did definitely get dropped in both of those fights. Oh, I guess he did get finished technically. Yeah, okay. I guess he did get finished in the first time they fought, but it wasn't like a flat KO. Right, it was more of and he was lighting up Usman as well, right? So it's not like Usman was just killing him the entire time. He was landing some pretty good shots as well. Whereas Masvidal, he fought him the first time, didn't really have much there for him. Kind of just got out grappled, out controlled. Second time around, he gets absolutely destroyed, gets flatlined on the floor. That wasn't a good look for him, especially because both of these guys talking shit about Usman striking, when in reality his striking is far better and improving by the day. So I don't know why either of these guys was talking shit about Usman striking. But this fight is not going to be, in my opinion, like a grappler versus striker kind of thing. I think you're actually going to see Covington try to box with him in certain situations where maybe he shouldn't, but he will. And then at the same time, I think you might even see Masvidal, tie him up just to see, I think they might play to each other's games in certain situations, and we'll have to see what happens. For Jorge Masvidal, coming off 2 losses, right, getting flatlined by Kamaru Usman and then losing a decision to Usman, and then defeating Nate Diaz, which honestly a lot of people are gonna finish Nate Diaz. Ben Askren, flying knee, that was a savage move, but it's Ben Askren. You got people like Jake Paul fighting Ben Askren, whatever. He knocked out Darren Till. which I think looking at Darren Till, we saw his fight against Derek Brunson. I don't want to give, I'll give credit to Jorge Masvidal. Obviously, he was the better striker that night. He got in his face. He landed the better shot, and he didn't fold. But Till has just bad fight IQ. So he is a great striker, but I think it's in close. We see that against Stephen Thompson when he lost the decision there. Thompson, obviously, one of the best strikers in the game right now, as far as, just having that raw karate game. He lost to Damian Maia. Obviously, that's, Damian Maia'd him. But he's beat, like, guys that he should beat, basically. That being said, obviously they have training in the past, and they've had multiple sparring sessions, and, they've said certain things about each other. Every time in the gym, I didn't quit, he quit, whatever. None of that matters until they get in there and throw it down, right? And I think what you're going to see in this fight I think you're going to see a great fight. I really don't think someone gets flatlined like early on or anything like that. I think one of these guys goes out there and we just see a great fight from both fighters. I don't want to say that I see someone getting absolutely destroyed within like a first minute. And it might happen, right, if they're too emotional in there when they actually start fighting. But I would look for Covington to not box with Jorge Masvidal. And then I would look for Masvidal to... Man, he's going to have... I don't know how he's going to convince him through fighting to keep the fight standing, because I just see Covington working in those takedowns and all that. And that's just going to be really annoying for Masvidal. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen with that. Like I said, though, we might see Covington try to box with him a little bit, even though he shouldn't probably. And then I think you might even see Masvidal, go in for some sort of like clinch. I don't know, maybe because it's just like, if Masvidal's game plan is to really just box with him, right? What is he gonna do when he has to defend the takedowns? Because I think Covington's gonna be able to take him down. I don't really think that's gonna be too much of a difficult thing for him. We saw him take down Kamaru Usman, or halfway take him down, whatever. But either way, I think Covington, the moment he starts getting those takedowns or just that control, and maybe he's able to land some ground and pound on the ground, we're just gonna have to see. But I wouldn't count on Covington as well with his striking. I just wouldn't. I really wouldn't, especially as the fight goes on. I would expect him to... He's gonna stay in there, right? He's a warrior. I think he's gonna stay in. Both guys are warriors, though, really. So we'll really have to see. I don't know. That's the crazy thing. Like, you think and then you don't at all. Like, you would expect Covington to go for the wrestling, Masvidal to go for the boxing, keep it standing, defend the takedowns, and not have anything to do with it. But you never know. Maybe he tries to beat him at his own game, right? Because granted, they've never fought in the UFC, but obviously they've sparred and probably fought behind the scenes, technically. So maybe they do try to go for the other one's game, just because they're like, okay, I know you're good, but you're not that good, or I'm going to prove to everyone, or throw him off. You got Covington coming out here trying to box with Masvidal, and he's piecing him up. That's going to be like, what? Like, because then Masvidal is going to think, what's going on here, man? Like, how am I getting pieced up by this guy? And the same thing with Covington, right? If Masvidal is able to defend a takedown or go for the clinch, or he goes for a clinch or some crazy shit, and then Covington's like, oh, what the hell does this guy think he's grappling me? Like, I don't know. But yeah, I think it's going to be a war. I don't see someone getting flatlined, at least not early on. So I'm going to go Colby Covington, though. I think his striking is just getting counted out too much, and everyone's focused on the wrestling. Whereas, like, everyone knows Jorge Masvidal has great boxing, but I don't think he has great takedowns. So I think it's going to be whoever's better at each other's game, and I just think Covington, yeah, it might not be as good, and I don't think it is as Masvidal's striking, but I think he might be able to hang in there, and that could take him by surprise. So I'm going to go Colby Covington to defeat Jorge Masvidal, and I'm taking him to win by a decision. And that'll do it, guys, for my UFC 272 main card predictions for the upcoming event taking place this Saturday, March 5th, 2022. Thank you guys for watching. I'm hoping to bounce back in this one. Got smashed in these fight nights, but I did well in that pay-per-view, so maybe do well in this one. Either way, thank you guys for watching. Leave your comments down below. Tell me who you're picking. Hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.